My name is Zack. I'm 27, and I live in a three-bedroom apartment that I absolutely can't afford without roommates. Thankfully, I don't have to, or at least, not completely. The place is shared with two other people. Melanie, a veterinary student who has a mild obsession with essential oils and taxidermy textbooks, and Joel, her boyfriend, who may or may not have a job. I've never seen him leave the apartment before noon. They're a little strange, yes, but they're quiet. Rent's low, and I'm not picky. I mostly keep to myself, work from home, IT gig, headphones on, meals microwaved. The perfect stealth roommate. I probably get along just fine with a haunted house if it kept rent under $400. But that was before the light bulb. It happened on a Wednesday night, the kind of forgettable midweek blur that smells like cheap instant noodles and exhaustion. I had just reheated a plate of over-salted pasta and wandered into the kitchen. Then, click, everything went black. I stood there, plate in hand, blinking into the darkness like it owed me an apology. The kitchen light, which had been buzzing for weeks like a mosquito with a grudge, had finally given out. Okay, I muttered to myself, don't panic. You've trained for this. You're an adult. I put the plate down, fished my phone from my pocket, turned on the flashlight, and headed to the tiny storage closet between the bathroom and Joel's shrine of a gaming setup. That closet had everything. Light bulbs, detergent, an old yoga mat no one claimed, and possibly a time portal behind the ironing board. I found a light bulbs on the top shelf, in a box labeled fragile, not for Zack. Naturally, I ignored that. Inside were 4 bulbs, 3 of them mismatched, one slightly flickering when shaken, and the 4th pink. Yes, a pink light bulb, like something you'd find at a Valentine's Day themed brothel. Perfect, I said to no one, grabbing it. Why did I choose the pink one? I wish I could say it was rebellion, or style, or irony. But really, I just didn't want to deal with the flickering one, and Melanie's passive-aggressive sighs if I used the wrong wattage. So, armed with my controversial lighting choice, I returned to the kitchen. I dragged the wobbly stool over from the pantry, the one with a leg that creaked like an arthritic pirate's knee, and climbed up carefully, pink bulb in hand. I unscrewed the dead bulb. Darkness deepened for a second. Then, as I screwed the pink one in, a soft, rosy hue spilled across the room like the inside of a flamingo's dream. I paused to admire it. Kinda nice, I muttered, and that's exactly when the door behind me creaked open. A soft, almost tentative sound, like someone didn't want to startle me, which is precisely what made it so startling. I turned too fast. The stool wobbled. My balance betrayed me. And then, physics happened. I didn't just fall. I launched. Like a mediocre Cirque du Soleil act gone terribly wrong. I crashed onto the kitchen table, the big oak one that Melanie covered with weird linen runners and votive candles, and of course a glass vase. A very fragile vase, filled with something. The impact was catastrophic. The vase exploded like it had a vendetta. I was instantly soaked in a weird, oily, herby liquid. Dried lavender, little purple buds, and what looked like twigs flew into the air like slow-motion confetti. My shirt stuck to my chest like cling wrap. A fork impaled a slice of mushroom on the wall. The pink light, now gently glowing above the chaos, illuminated the whole mess like a scene from a surreal soap opera. I just lay there, on the table, soaked, glazed in flower oil, holding a pink light bulb. And that's exactly when Melanie walked in. She froze in the doorway, keys still in hand, a takeout bag dangling from one wrist. Her face didn't even move. It was like watching a computer buffer. Then finally, she blinked and said, flatly, "What the actual hell are you doing?" There's a moment, after the sound of shattering glass, after the squelch of a body meeting something soaked and sacred, when the human brain just stops. It refuses to process. That was me, lying like a half-cooked lasagna on the kitchen table, covered in fragrant oil, flowers, splinters, and guilt. The silence was surgical. Melanie's eyes darted from the floor to the tabletop, to the bulb, to my face, to the floral massacre. Her voice was calm, clipped, and perfectly terrifying. "Is that my diploma vase?" I opened my mouth to explain. But words, real, useful words, were on vacation. What came out was a sort of weak, gargling noise. Light bulb dark and accident. She dropped her keys into a bowl by the door with an uncharacteristically loud clink and walked forward slowly, like approaching a wounded raccoon. The pink light above us cast her face in a soft magenta that made the rage in her eyes even more surreal. "My dried herbarium," she said coldly, picking up a soggy sprig of lavender from the floor. "I've been collecting that for months." I attempted to sit up, but it was like peeling myself off a glue trap. The oily residue on my arms made me slip slightly, and I had to brace myself on the edge of the table, which let out a tortured groan under my weight. "I swear," I said, "I was just trying to change the light bulb." "Into what? A funeral for aromatherapy?" The door to her room creaked open behind her. Of course. Enter Joel. Bathrobe, navy blue. Fluffy, with the tie dragging behind him like a disillusioned tail. Over-ear headphones still wrapped around his neck, leaking the sounds of a lo-fi beat that did not suit the occasion. He blinked once, took in the scene. His gaze moved like a scanner. Pink light, broken glass, oil puddles, lavender, me, Melanie, me again, my very beige, very clingy t-shirt. Then he frowned. "Dude," he said slowly, "you guys could have warned me if you were going to do whatever this is on the kitchen table." Melanie choked. "What?" Joel pointed at me with the lazy authority of a man who believes every situation is probably someone else's fault. "I mean, I'm chill with whatever. But the table? Really, it's not." I started, then flailed, almost sliding off the edge of my panic. Melanie turned toward him, hands at her hair now. "You broke my vase, Joel. My final project. And you think we're—" "Well," Joel said, "he's got the pink mood lighting, the flowers, and, He squinted. "Is that lavender stuck to his nipple?" I didn't even look. I didn't have the strength. I fell. I barked. The light bulb went out, and I fell. "That's it." Silence. Then Melanie crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "You climbed onto the wobbly stool?" "Yes." "To install a pink light bulb?" "Yes." "And then fell. Onto my table. Onto my flowers. And you're covered in oil, because—" I blinked. I hadn't even thought about that part yet. I glanced around. The vase, or whatever was left of it, sat in a pool of golden liquid that was slowly congealing on the floor. My legs were dripping with it. My shirt was soaked. Even the bulb in my hand glistened. "What was in that vase?" I asked, genuinely afraid of the answer. Melanie sighed. "Preservation fluid. For the plants. Like water. More like a mixture of almond oil, glycerin, and essential extracts. It keeps the colors and texture intact." Joel nodded approvingly. "You smell nice, dude." I groaned and slumped backward onto the table again. "Kill me." Melanie didn't laugh or yell. She just picked up a paper towel, sighed again, and started dabbing the floor around the broken pieces. Joel, still watching me with mild amusement, scratched his stomach under the robe and wandered off toward the fridge. As he opened it, pink light spilled across the room, casting the entire scene in a gentle, rosy glow, like the world's weirdest Valentine's Day dinner gone apocalyptically wrong. He looked back at me one more time. "Hey man, respect for the commitment. Just next time, maybe try not to seduce the kitchen furniture." I didn't respond, because somehow I was still holding the damn light bulb. 10 minutes had passed. 10 long, shame-soaked, lavender-scented minutes. I had managed to clean myself up just enough to look less like a soaked Roman tragic actor and more like a sweaty intruder from a Valentine's-themed soap commercial. The pink glow still clung to every surface like romantic fog that refused to lift. I had turned off the main switch, but the memory of it lingered on everyone's retinas, like trauma with a color palette. Joel was now sitting cross-legged on the couch, sipping orange juice straight from the carton and scrolling on his phone, apparently over the incident. Melanie, on the other hand, was crouched beside the kitchen table, using tweezers to retrieve what remained of her sacred herbarium. I stood nearby, still holding a half-full trash bag of glass shards and lavender clumps, trying to make myself look useful. "For the record," I said, "this isn't what it looked like." Melanie didn't look up. "Oh, because it looked like you were trying to host a scented seance with a furniture fetish." I winced. "Okay, maybe it looked kind of bad." She gave me a dead-eyed look that screamed, "Kind of." "All right, it looked awful. But I swear, I was just trying to change the light bulb, because the kitchen went dark. I didn't want to trip while carrying boiling pasta. That's how people end up on the news. Joel chimed in from the couch without looking up. Local man dies tragically, slipping in spaghetti, remembered only for smelling like a farmer's market. I ignored him. I found the bulbs, I continued, gesturing toward the hallway, and most of them were broken or weird, and there was this one pink one that you chose. Melanie cut in out of all options. It was the most functional one. It was pink. Pink is a color that produces light. She rolled her eyes and stood up, holding what remained of a limp flower that resembled a soggy sea creature. It was a rose-scented bulb, Zack. I didn't sniff it. I just screwed it in. At that moment, as if summoned by the sheer absurdity of our conversation, a faint click came from the hallway. The overhead light flickered back on. We all froze. Was the power even out? I whispered. Joel looked up from his phone, blinking in the returning brightness. Melanie's face darkened. Wait, Zack, did you even check the breaker? I went pale. No, I just assumed it was the bulb. It went out and I didn't check the fuse box. I panicked. Oh my God, she said, pinching the bridge of her nose. You literally destroyed my final project because you didn't flip a switch. Look, I was holding a plate of boiling pasta. There were steaks. You picked the wrong steaks, Zack. Joel raised his hand lazily from the couch. Just saying I could have fixed the breaker. You only had to ask. You were wearing headphones and a robe, Joel. He shrugged. The tension in the room reached an unbearable high, hanging like a heavy fog of unresolved floral drama. My skin still felt slightly sticky. The scent of lavender had somehow intensified, and the trash bag in my hand was starting to drip. I'll pay for the vase, I said meekly. Melanie didn't answer. She walked to the cabinet, pulled out a mug, and poured herself a splash of oat milk. Then she looked at me. Do you even know what kind of vase that was? Breakable. It was a hand-blown antique. From Provence. Oh, and those herbs were preserved with organic, rare, essential oils. I hand-dried them. You can't just buy those. I stood in place, feeling like a child who had kicked a priceless museum exhibit while trying to reach for candy. Then she added, with surgical calmness, and you owe me a new lavender-scented bulb. The mood lighting was nice, actually, until you ruined it. So you like the pink light? Silence. A long, long silence. Then, as if reluctant to give me a single victory, she muttered, a little, but don't let it go to your head. Joel raised his juice. To Zack, the most confusing man to ever enter a kitchen. I dropped the bag of glass into the bin and slumped into a chair. The worst part? The whole time I was still barefoot. The oil had made my foot slide against the linoleum with every step, and I kept imagining slipping again, but this time into something worse. Maybe Melanie's backup project, or Joel's mysterious forbidden cheese drawer. Next time a bulb dies, I thought, I'm using candles, or eating in the dark, or moving out. It's been half an hour of wiping oil off cabinets. Half an hour of Joel occasionally laughing to himself for no reason. Half an hour of Melanie alternating between dry sarcasm and silent mourning over her ruined plant art. And me? I was still trying to explain how I'd ended up shirts stuck to my body, soaked in floral grease, illuminated by an accidental sex club light bulb. Again, but this time with more audience. Melanie, to her credit, had calmed down. In the way a volcano calms down before erupting again, she now sat at the table, the very table I had earlier body-slammed like a failed magician, with her hands clasped, staring at me like a confused teacher trying to understand how her student ate the homework instead of doing it. Joel sat next to her, elbows on the table, face absolutely lit up with anticipation. I stood in the kitchen, under the halo of soft pink light that now made the dried sauce stains on the wall look like abstract art. Okay, Melanie said, folding her arms. I want you to explain what happened. From the top. But this time, Zack. Yeah. She leaned forward. Explain it in normal words. I blinked. Normal. Yes. No poetry, no metaphors, no jokes, no adjectives that involve scent. I sighed. Okay. And I began. I walked into the kitchen to eat dinner. The light went out. I checked the storage closet for a bulb. Found 4. One of them was pink. The rest were sketchy. I picked the pink one, grabbed the stool, started changing the bulb. So far, so stupid, Joel muttered. I ignored him. Halfway through screwing it in, the kitchen door opened. I turned, lost balance, fell, landed on the table, broke a vase, got covered in fluid. Preservation oil, Melanie corrected bitterly. Right, that. You walked in. Then Joel walked in. You both made assumptions. Joel raised a finger. Nope. I made observations. Like how you were lying suggestively across the table, glowing pink, shirt stuck to your chest like a wet tortilla. I frowned. It was a beige shirt. Melanie squinted. Zack, that was not beige. That was your skin color with a logo. It was from Uniqlo. Doesn't matter. Looked naked from 5 feet away. Also, she held up her phone, thumb hovering over a photo. Why did you continue to hold the bulb after falling? Instinct. Joel leaned over. You cradled it like it was your child. I threw up my hands. Would you have preferred I dropped that too? Maybe caused an electrical fire? Exploded the microwave? Set the rosemary on fire? Melanie deadpanned. Honestly, that might have added closure. I sighed and sat down across from them. And why were you wet? She continued. I don't. No. I guess I landed hard enough to splash the oil. It got everywhere. You saw. Zack, she said slowly. The first thing I saw was your lavender-slicked chest sparkling like a bottle of overpriced soap. And the last thing was Joel accusing us of table intimacy. Hey, Joel said, defensive now. I was just trying to make sense of the scene. It looked deliberate. The pink glow, the flowers, the position. I fell. I could feel the heat in my face again. Not embarrassment. Well, not only embarrassment, but something else. Something worse. The knowledge that no matter how many times I explained this, it would never sound normal. Joel picked up his phone and started typing with a smirk. I narrowed my eyes. What are you doing? Posting a poll to my story. Can falling during a light bulb change look like softcore drama? So far, 87% say yes. Delete that. No. Melanie, at least, seemed to pity me now. She leaned back and let out a long sigh. You're just... Zack, she said. I am. You tried. You failed spectacularly. But your intentions weren't awful. Thank you. I still want you to pay for the vase. Understood. And a new bulb. One that isn't a mood enhancer. I already boxed the pink one. Good. There was a long pause. And then Joel grinned and said, So, we're not going to talk about the fact that you smelled amazing the whole time? Joel. He raised his juice in peace. Just saying. He gave the room a spa vibe. For a moment, I thought I'd walked into a wellness retreat. Very relaxing. I buried my face in my hands. If I ever moved out, I'd leave behind 2 things, a lease with my name on it and a memory that smelled vaguely of lavender and poor decisions. I thought that would be the end of it. The vase? Broken. My pride? Dismantled. The pink bulb? Back in its box, wrapped in shame and bubble wrap like radioactive waste. I spent the next few days pretending nothing happened. Kept my head down. Ate dinner in my room. Walked softly like I was trying not to wake a bear. Melanie returned to her usual silent intensity, though every now and then she'd glance at me like I was a rogue experiment in roommate science. Joel, on the other hand, had fully embraced the event as household mythology. I caught him narrating it to his Discord friends like some epic tale of love, tragedy, and light temperature scandal. He even gave a name, the Pinkening. I wanted to die. And then, just when I thought I could move on, it happened again. The kitchen light died. Not in a dramatic, sudden blackout this time. No, it flickered for 2 days, like it was having second thoughts about existing, and then it coughed itself into darkness at 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I stood there with my phone flashlight pointed at a frozen burrito, staring at the blank ceiling fixture. And I said aloud, nope. I didn't even try. Didn't go for the stool. Didn't check the closet. Didn't touch the breaker. Instead, I pulled out my phone, ordered pad thai from the place downstairs, and went back to my room like a man who had already fought the gods and lost. Some part of me expected Melanie to say something. She didn't. She ate her dinner in the living room that night, a single lit candle between her and Joel, casting long, flickering shadows across the floor. It looked like a seance. or a couple mourning their shared trauma. And I swear, I heard Joel say, "You remember when Zack tried to bring ambience to dinner by becoming a human diffuser?" I didn't leave my room. The next morning, Melanie passed me in the hallway. She looked tired, hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes from too much reading or too much remembering. She stopped. "You know the light's out again, right?" she asked casually. "I know. You're not going to fix it?" "No." She paused. "Any particular reason?" "Yes," I said. "The last time I tried, I nearly became a cautionary tale for bath and body stores everywhere." She nodded, reasonable, and walked away. Later that day, she replaced the bulb herself with a warm yellow one. Neutral, harmless, boring. When I passed through the kitchen that night to get a soda, the light was back. It felt normal, like it had never been pink, never held a grudge, never made me question the laws of social survival. But something in me missed it. That soft, rosy hue. The way it bathed my mistakes in tenderness. The absurdity. The romance. The soap-slick shame. I stood for a moment under the new bulb, blinking upward. And that's when I saw it. Tucked behind the spice rack. Barely visible. Almost glowing like it remembered me. The pink bulb. I picked it up. Held it in my palm like a cursed jewel. And for just a second, I considered putting it back in. But then I thought of Joel's grin. Of the lavender. Of Melanie's voice saying, "Why is your nipple shiny?" And I put the bulb back into its cardboard tomb. Some lights are too powerful for this world. It was 3 days after I exiled the pink bulb to its cardboard purgatory when I found it again. Or rather, it found me. It started small. One morning, I opened the kitchen cabinet and a soft floral scent wafted into my face. Familiar. Distinct. Lavender. I stared into the cabinet for a full 5 seconds before closing it again, like I had accidentally opened a portal to a cursed Etsy shop. The next day, I caught Joel humming the melody to Careless Whisper as he passed me in the hallway. He didn't even acknowledge me, just walked by in his robe, mouthing the saxophone solo. By the 4th day, I had convinced myself it was over. That maybe, finally, I was allowed to be a man who existed in a household with functional lighting and no emotional damage from essential oils. Then came the night of the house meeting. Melanie called it. That was already a bad sign. She wasn't the kind of roommate who held meetings. She was the kind who communicated in sticky notes and passive-aggressive chopping sounds in the kitchen. So when she knocked on my door at 9:15 p.m. with a clipboard and a very serious bun in her hair, I knew something was wrong. Living room. 10 minutes. Joel was already on the couch when I arrived, sipping sparkling water and looking too amused. Melanie stood by the whiteboard. We had a whiteboard with a list of topics written in red marker. Cleaning schedule. Groceries. The incident. Yep. Quotation marks and everything. She started with cleaning. I nodded. Joel nodded. Nobody cared. Then groceries. Something about splitting out milk costs. I agreed to everything. I would have sold a kidney to end the meeting faster. And then she tapped the 3rd item on the list. "Let's talk about the incident." I didn't respond. Joel did. I still think it was iconic. Melanie shot him a glare. "Joel." "Sorry. Please continue." "Serious business." She turned to me. "Zack, I understand that accidents happen. I moved on. Sort of. Thank you," I said cautiously. However, she pulled something out from under the coffee table. A box. Familiar. Brown. Labeled in Sharpie. "Do not touch." She opened it. Inside, nestled like a forbidden artifact, was the pink bulb. Joel clapped once. "It returns. Why is it in the bathroom drawer?" Melanie asked. "What?" "I found it next to the toothbrushes, wrapped in a sock." I blinked. I haven't touched it since." She held up a hand. "I'm not accusing you. I'm saying this bulb has moved. On its own." Joel raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying it's alive?" Melanie stared at him. "I'm saying someone, possibly you, has been moving around for fun." Joel looked genuinely offended. I would never disrespect the sanctity of Zack's trauma bulb. I reached for it. "Can we just throw it out?" Melanie pulled it away. "No." I froze. "No." She hesitated. "I sort of like it now." Joel's jaw dropped. "You bullied him for days, and now you want to install it again?" "Not in the kitchen," she said quickly. "God, no. But maybe hallway night light? Just temporary? Soft mood lighting? It's kind of comforting. I stared at them both. You're telling me, I said slowly, that after everything I went through, the fall, the lavender, the nipple jokes, you both want to use the bulb again? Joel nodded. It's got a vibe. Melanie shrugged. It makes the apartment feel weirdly safe. Safe? It smells like a witch's pillow and nearly gave me a concussion. Trauma bonds, Joel said wisely. They change people. I buried my face in my hands. You can put it in your room, I muttered. Just keep it away from my side of the apartment. Melanie smiled. I'll be careful. She picked up the bulb like it was an egg made of memories and sadness and lavender oil and disappeared down the hallway. Joel leaned in. You know what this means, right? No. It's a comeback story. You went from accident to icon. Stop. Soon it'll be your thing. The light bulb guy. I'm moving out. No, you're not. You're the lore now. I stared at the wall, questioning every decision that led to this moment. But deep down, in the quietest part of my soul, I knew he was right. There was a time, not long ago, when I believed in logic. Cause and effect. Action and consequence. That if you change a light bulb, you didn't accidentally become a meme, a conversation piece, or a household deity. That time was gone. Now, I live in a world where a pink bulb, a soft, rosy, almost mocking orb of romantic ambience, have become a lifestyle choice in our apartment. It started innocently enough. Melanie mounted it in the hallway. She didn't even ask. I came out one morning to find the corridor bathed in a gentle glow, like I was walking through a Victoria's Secret catalog. It cast long, dramatic shadows on the walls. It made the hallway smell faintly of lavender, which I didn't think was possible since it was just a bulb, but the scent was there. Subtle, persistent, menacing. Joel called it the aura. He stopped using the main overhead light altogether. When I asked him why, he just said, "This is my emotional color now." That alone was disturbing. But it didn't stop there. They started adding things. A tiny incense holder on the hallway table. A folded lavender towel. A ceramic dish filled with salt and tiny stones. I didn't even know where they got that stuff. By Friday, Melanie had framed a quote above the bulb. Let there be light, but make it emotionally complex. Joel insisted it was ironic. I wasn't so sure anymore. One night, I came home late after a walk. I needed air, or more accurately, distance. I walked in, shoes wet from the rain, and the apartment was dark. Except the hallway. That pink light was still on, and Joel was sitting beneath it, cross-legged, eyes closed, surrounded by tea candles. I froze. What are you doing? He opened one eye. Chill. Joel. I'm centering myself. You're sitting in the hallway like it's a spiritual loading screen. It's the vibe room now. It's not a room. He stood slowly, like a monk emerging from trance. The hallway chooses you, Zack. It glows when you're ready to forgive yourself. I came here to eat cereal. Cereal is also valid. I walked past him, carefully stepping over a bowl of flower petals I refused to ask about, and retreated to the kitchen. But it didn't stop there. The next day, Melanie hosted her study group. 3 vet students arrived, each with more piercings than the last. I passed them in the hallway, offered a polite nod, and noticed they all paused near the bulb. They stopped and looked up at it. One whispered, "Oh wow, I feel that." I wanted to scream. That night, I found a folded piece of paper taped to the hallway wall. Pink light meditation. Tuesdays and Thursdays, join the glow. It had bullet points. I stormed into the living room. Are you two trying to start a cult? Melanie looked up from her laptop. We're building community. You're building a glowing hallway and calling it therapy. Joel, without looking up from his sketch pad, said, "Do you feel threatened by softness?" I blinked. I'm deeply threatened by this softness. You made a pamphlet. It's not a pamphlet. It's a guide. You literally gave the light bulb a name. Joel smiled proudly. Gloria. Stop. But it didn't stop. Nothing stopped. That night, I found an RSVP list for something called Glow Night on the fridge. There were snacks planned. There was a Spotify playlist. Melanie caught me reading it and said casually, "You're on chip duty, by the way." I stared at her for a long time. Then I opened the fridge. The inside light? Pink. Melanie, I said without turning around, What did you do? I replaced it. With another pink bulb? It's cohesive now. Why? She shrugged. Branding. That's when I knew. This wasn't about light anymore. This was religion, and I become its unwilling prophet. There are moments in life when you look around and realize you're not part of something. You're trapped inside it. It was Thursday night, 8:59 p.m. I had just returned from the store with 3 bags of assorted chips, because apparently chip duty was not a metaphor. I was the designated provider of crunch. The apartment was suspiciously quiet. Too quiet. I kicked the door shut with my foot, dropped the bags on the counter, and froze. The lights were off. All of them. Except one. That infernal, glowing pink bulb in the hallway. It pulsed. Not literally, but I swear it looked brighter than usual. Warmer. Like it had been fed. Mel! I called. Joel! No answer. I took a cautious step forward. The hallway smelled like cinnamon and sage. Someone had been very intentional about the ambience. Then, as if on cue, music started. Low. Ethereal. Like a Spotify playlist called Vibey Forest Ritual for soft people. Then came the chimes. Like someone had a wind chime indoors. I followed the sound to the living room. And that's when I saw it. They were all sitting in a circle. Melanie. Joel. The 3 pierced vet students. And, inexplicably, the guy from downstairs who always forgets his mail key. Each of them had a tea candle in front of them, and a little bowl were those crushed rose petals. The center of the circle? A small glass pedestal with Gloria, the original pink bulb, screwed into a base lamp like some kind of sacred relic. No one spoke. They all turned to look at me at once. Melanie smiled warmly. You made it. I live here, I said. We didn't know if you'd come. I live here. Joel gestured to the open spot in the circle. A pillow had been set out with a bowl of cool ranch Doritos next to it. Your offering, he said solemnly. I brought those for snacks. They're for her now. Who? They all looked at the bulb. I blinked. Nope. No. Absolutely not. Melanie tilted her head. Zack. Denial is the last phase of resistance. I slowly backed toward the hallway until Joel said, Before you go, it's your turn to read the affirmation. I paused. The what? Melanie held up a laminated card and handed it to me. There, in bold Comic Sans, were the words. Sparkles, I am glowing because I choose to glow. The light is in me. The pink is not a color. It's a feeling. Sparkles. I looked at her. You laminated this? We respect the light. I'm going to the kitchen. As I turned, the vet student with the nose chain whispered, Don't forget your glow. I didn't respond. In the kitchen, I found 2 more pink bulbs in a drawer labeled Emergency Vibe. On the wall, a chalkboard sign, Gloria sees you. I sat at the table, opened a can of soda, and stared at the glowing hallway like it might reach out and absorb me. 10 minutes later, Joel walked in, still barefoot, still vibing. He sat across from me. You okay? I just wanted to change the light bulb. He nodded sympathetically. We all did at first. I narrowed my eyes. What does that mean? He just smiled and walked out, but not before whispering something I would never forget. Soon you'll see the glow was inside you all along. And I knew, deep down, somewhere in my weary soul, glow night wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. You know the feeling when you walk into a room and you just know someone's been talking about you? Now imagine that room is the entire building, and they're not just talking, they're glowing. It began the next morning. I woke up to the sound of chanting. Not Gregorian monks or culty Latin hymns. No, this was worse. It was a ukulele cover of Total Eclipse of the Heart, echoing up the stairwell, sung in harmony by about 16 people. When I opened my door, the hallway was bathed in soft, shimmering pink. The bulb wasn't just glowing, it was pulsating. And there, outside every single unit, small bowls of offerings. One had trail mix. Another, a tiny ceramic frog holding a quartz crystal. Apartment 3C had written, Thank you, Glow Queen, in glitter glue across their doormat. What the hell? I grabbed my phone to text Mel. Zack, are you seeing this? Zack, please tell me this is a joke. Zack, why is our hallway turning into a Glossier ad? No response. I peeked into the living room. Empty. But on the couch was a new pillow. Hand-stitched. It said, in curly font, "Let the light consume your limitations." This was no longer ironic. It had become sincere. At 11 a.m., I heard a knock. When I opened the door, a woman I'd never seen stood there smiling. She had pink eyeliner, pink earrings, and a baby pink clipboard. "Hi there. We're doing a building-wide light alignment ceremony tonight. Just wondering if you'd like to contribute a bulb." I stared. "What? A bulb? Preferably pastel. Full wattage preferred, but dimmable is also fine. Gloria accepts all glows." I blinked. "Sorry, who?" She pointed toward the hallway bulb, now surrounded by a decorative paper sunburst. "Her." I shut the door. Hard. Back in the kitchen, I opened the cabinet. Inside were now 5 pink bulbs, neatly arranged like Faberge eggs. One had a handwritten note taped to it. "For Zack, in case you're ready to see." I slammed the cabinet shut. Then I turned on the faucet and splashed my face. This wasn't a joke anymore. It was spreading. By 2 p.m., the downstairs mailman was wearing a shirt that said "Glow Bro." By 4 p.m., our Wi-Fi name had changed to pink__HQ. And by 5 p.m., I cracked. I stormed into Melanie's room. She was there, cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, surrounded by softly glowing salt lamps. "Mel," I said. She didn't open her eyes. "I'm not doing this." She smiled gently. "You already are." "What does that mean?" "You brought the first bulb. You lit the path." "No." I dropped a vase and fell into a table. "That's not a prophecy. That's clumsiness." She opened her eyes. "Intentional or not, you were chosen. And Gloria responds to intention." "What even is Gloria?" "A haunted IKEA lamp." Melanie tilted her head. "She's illumination. She's surrender. She's what happens when we stop dimming ourselves." I stared at her. Then, flatly, "You made that up 5 seconds ago." "Zack, we're not forcing you to join. But if you choose to resist, she might dim you." I laughed. "Mel, it's a light bulb. It can't dim me." She smiled sadly. "She already has." That night, I tried to order pizza. The app wouldn't load. My phone brightness dropped to 5%. My room light flickered. And when I finally gave up and crawled into bed, I noticed something on my ceiling, painted in faint, glowing pink. There is no off switch, only acceptance. I never thought a light bulb could be the boss of me. But here I was, sitting cross-legged in the hallway under Gloria's soft pink glow, surrounded by tea candles, rose petals, and 3 vet students whispering affirmations. I blinked at the laminated card in my hands. "Sparkles, I am glowing because I choose to glow. The light is in me. The pink is not a color. It's a feeling." "Sparkles." Joel smiled beside me. "Feels good, right?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. Because, somehow, after all the falls, all the broken vases, all the embarrassment, I'd found myself here. Not just under a pink bulb, but in the glow. The apartment felt warmer. Softer. The shadows played differently on the walls. Melanie caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you." I didn't know what for, but I realized I couldn't fight it anymore. Maybe it was the absurdity. Maybe it was the lavender oil still faint on my skin. Maybe it was the fact that the glow made my apartment feel like home. I closed my eyes and whispered the words. "Sparkles, the light is in me. Sparkles." A smile broke across my face. Because, in the end, sometimes you just want to change a light bulb. And sometimes the light changes you.